She walked into that restaurant every single day, head down, apron tied, invisible to the world around her. A poor waitress. Nobody special. Nobody important. That's what they thought. But the night a powerful mafia boss's daughter walked through those doors, furious, untouchable, and completely out of control, every manager fled, every staff member froze, and every person in that room looked the other way. Every person, except her. What this overlooked waitress did in the next few minutes didn't just silence a room. It shattered every assumption people had made about who she was, where she came from, and what she was worth. Because sometimes the person everyone ignores is the only one brave enough to do what's right. And this is her story.
Her name was Maya. 26 years old, single mother of a 7-year-old boy she was raising entirely on her own. Every morning before the sun came up, she was already on her feet, packing her son's lunch, ironing her uniform, and mentally preparing herself for another 10-hour shift at Rosaria's, one of the most upscale Italian restaurants in the city. Maya wasn't there because she loved the job. She was there because she needed it. The tips were decent on good nights, and the manager, a stiff corporate man named Gerald, had promised her a supervisor position if she kept her head down and her numbers up. So that's exactly what she did. Head down, mouth shut, work harder than everyone else in the room, and ask for nothing in return. She had learned early that the world wasn't built for women who looked like her. Black, young, and working class in a restaurant where the clientele was wealthy, white, and deeply accustomed to getting exactly what they wanted, exactly when they wanted it. The other staff tolerated her, the regulars barely looked at her, and Gerald, whenever a complaint came in, whenever something went wrong, his eyes always found Maya first. Still, she showed up, every single day, because her son needed new shoes, because the rent was 3 weeks from being late, because giving up was a luxury she simply could not afford. That particular Friday evening started like any other. The restaurant was full, the music was low, the candles were lit. Maya moved between tables with quiet precision, refilling glasses, delivering plates, managing the invisible labor that kept the whole operation running smoothly. Nobody noticed her. That was the point. But none of them knew what was about to walk through that front door, and how it would force every single person in that room to finally see her.
She arrived like a storm that had already destroyed everything in the next town over. Bianca Rossi, 22 years old, daughter of Dominic Rossi, a man whose name alone made city councilmen go quiet and restaurant owners break into a cold sweat. She swept through the front entrance with 2 friends trailing behind her, designer bags swinging, eyes scanning the room like she already owned it. And in every way that mattered in that world, she did. Gerald, the manager, practically ran to greet her. Table repositioned, champagne ordered before she sat down, staff quietly reshuffled so that only the most experienced, meaning the least black, the least ethnic, the least different, were assigned to her section. Maya watched it happen from across the room. She had seen it before. She said nothing. For the first hour, things held together. Then Bianca's mood shifted. It started with the food. She sent back her pasta, too cold. Then her wine, wrong year. Then her friend's dessert, wrong plate, wrong presentation, wrong everything. The complaints came fast and theatrical, each one louder than the last. The staff scrambled. Gerald apologized in triplicate, and Bianca, fed by the attention, escalated further. That's when her eyes landed on Maya. Maya had simply been passing through, clearing a table nearby, doing her job, invisible as always. But Bianca stopped mid-sentence, looked her up and down, and said something to her friends that made them laugh, a sharp, ugly laugh that cut through the ambient music and turned a few nearby heads. Maya kept moving, head down, mouth shut, just like she'd always done. But Bianca wasn't finished. She called out, loudly enough for the surrounding tables to hear, that she didn't want that one anywhere near her food. that she didn't understand why a place like Rosario's was lowering its standards, that some people simply didn't belong in certain spaces, and everyone in the room knew it, even if nobody had the courage to say it out loud. The restaurant went still. Not the good kind of still, the suffocating kind, where everyone hears exactly what was said, understands exactly what it means, and looks down at their plates anyway. Gerald appeared within seconds, but instead of addressing the comment, instead of defending the woman who had shown up for every shift, covered every table, and never once caused a problem, he turned to Maya and told her, quietly but firmly, to take her break, to disappear, to make it easier for everyone. Maya stood there for just a moment, the weight of the room pressing down on her from every direction. The humiliation wasn't new, but something about the silence surrounding it, the way not one person looked up, not one colleague stepped forward, made it land differently this time. She walked toward the back, and Gerald exhaled, relieved, already moving to smooth things over with Bianca, completely unaware that Maya had not gone to the break room. She had stopped just outside the kitchen door, because from there she could see exactly what was happening at Bianca's table, and what she saw next made her decision for her.
Bianca Rossi was choking. Not dramatically, not in a way that had registered with her friends yet, but Maya had seen it. The hand at the throat, the sudden stillness, the way her body had stopped responding to her commands. A piece of food, lodged. Wrong angle, wrong moment, wrong everything, and nobody at that table had noticed yet. Maya didn't hesitate, not for a single second. She moved through that dining room like the space between her and Bianca was the only thing that existed. Past the white tablecloths, past the crystal glasses, past every person who had looked through her all night, she reached Bianca before anyone else had even registered what was happening, positioned herself, and delivered 3 firm, precise compressions to her back. Nothing. Again, harder this time, with everything she had. The room was fully watching now, frozen, horrified, completely useless. On the 3rd attempt, a piece of food flew from Bianca's airway, and she gasped, loudly and desperately, pulling in the kind of breath that sounds like a person being born again. Her friends erupted. Nearby tables stood up. Someone started crying. Gerald appeared from nowhere, white-faced and speechless. And Bianca, still catching her breath, hands trembling, makeup ruined, turned to look at the woman standing directly behind her. The same woman she had humiliated 20 minutes ago. The same woman Gerald had dismissed. The same woman every single person in that room had chosen not to see. Looking at her now, really looking, for the very first time. The silence that followed wasn't the suffocating kind from earlier. It was the kind that only happens when an entire room of people realizes simultaneously how completely and catastrophically wrong they have been. Maya held Bianca's gaze, calm, steady, dignified. And in that moment, every assumption, every insult, every deliberate act of erasure that had been directed at this woman collapsed under the weight of a single, undeniable truth. She had just saved the life of the person who had tried to make her disappear.
Maya went back to work that night. That might be the most powerful part of this entire story. Not the heroism, not the silence that followed, not even the look on Bianca's face. It was the fact that after everything, after the humiliation, after being dismissed, after saving a life in front of a room full of people who had treated her as less than human, Maya picked up her tray, straightened her apron, and finished her shift. Because her son still needed those shoes. The rent was still due. The world had not magically changed in the 60 seconds it took her to save someone who despised her. Gerald never apologized, not publicly. He quietly removed himself from her section for the rest of the evening, unable to meet her eyes. But no words were spoken, no acknowledgement made. Bianca's friends left a large tip on the table before walking out, as if money could absorb what the room had witnessed, as if it was a transaction that could be quietly settled and forgotten. But it couldn't be forgotten.
Because this is what racial injustice actually looks like, not always in the screaming headlines, but in the everyday architecture of a world designed to make certain people feel small. It lives in the manager who sends the black employee away to avoid conflict, in the dining room that goes silent and looks down, in the compliment disguised as surprise, the quiet shock on people's faces when a woman they underestimated turns out to be extraordinary. Maya already knew who she was. She had always known. The real question, the one this story forces us to sit with, is why it took a moment of crisis for everyone else to see it. Because there are Mayas everywhere, in restaurants, in hospitals, in boardrooms and classrooms, and every overlooked corner of daily life, showing up, doing the work, saving the room, while the room pretends they're invisible. So ask yourself honestly, who have you been choosing not to see?